In what seems like a terrible plot twist in a badly written political drama, Zimbabwe journalist Blessed Mhlanga found himself behind bars on 24 February 2025, charged with incitement of violence, or some may call it the crime of asking too many questions. Mhlanga, who reports for Newsday and Heart and Soul Television, was arrested after interviewing war veteran turned politician Comrade Blessed Geza, who had the audacity to suggest that President Emerson Mnangagwa might not be the best thing that happened to Zimbabwe since independence. Let us listen to Comrade Blessed Geza's utterances.
As I speak, I represent fellow Zimbabweans with ZANU-PF members, disgruntled but afraid to speak. And there are many of them, members of the security forces, who sacrificed their lives for Operation Restore Legacy. That has yielded nothing for their families. And I also speak for the poor and forgotten, whose dreams and hopes have been crushed by a clueless and hopeless government of corrupt and greedy individuals led by Emerson Mnangagwa and his children.
Meanwhile, many people have voiced their concerns about the legitimacy of these allegations on Blessed Mhlanga, including why bail was denied. For more context on this matter, let us watch the following video clip.
Blessed Mhlanga stands accused of transmitting data to incite violence. He appeared in court on Friday, where Magistrate Farai Gutima denied him bail. The magistrate found his release would be a threat to national security. Mhlanga's lawyers will now appeal the ruling.
We are deeply disappointed with the outcome from court today. We had really hoped for a positive outcome. While we respect the court's decision, we must make it clear that we strongly disagree with the conclusions and the determination made by the court. Accordingly, we have been instructed to appeal this decision.
The interview was broadcasted on Heart and Soul TV, HSTV, owned by Trevor Ngube. Ngube accused the president of owning the courts and trying to control the media.
It's saddening, it's heartbreaking, but that is what it is in terms of the selective application of the law in our country. But this is the reality that we are in right now. Unfortunately, President Mnangagwa owns the courts, they have said.
The Zimbabwe Union of Journalists is also fighting for his release.
We are going to be engaging authorities, as it were, to try and make sure that we make them see sense that truly there is no case that Blessed or crime that Blessed committed.
The Committee to Protect the Journalist is calling for Mhlanga's release, saying his detention is shameful.
Apparently, in a country that claims to uphold freedom of speech, discussing the possibility of public protest and criticizing the president is a one-way ticket to prison, court delays, and very bad prison food. Don't frown at me. Hear what another victim of the powers that be, Opo Chingono, has to say about life behind bars after being allegedly victimized for his investigative journalism work, which exposed government corruption.
Thank you for your time. How are you doing? It's been a couple of days since you've been released on bail.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me on your program. I'm recovering well at home. I came out of prison with a terrible fever. The prison service could not even give me painkillers. That's how bad the situation is in prison, but I'm recovering well at home.
And how was it for you in prison? How were you treated while you were in custody? What was your experience?
The prison service is a reflection of what has become of our country, broken down. We were living in cells meant for 16 people, and in my cell we were about 44 people. And there was no running water. There's no running water in the prison. There's also a terrible diet. People get fed cornmeal with boiled beans with no cooking oil or anything to come with it. In the evening, they get their supper. It's again cornmeal with boiled cabbages. So the situation is really terrible. I was talking to one of the psychiatrists today and explaining to him what I saw in prison. Last week, just before I was released, a prisoner was killed by another prisoner, and they were psychiatric patients. And the reason why it happened is because that the prison service is failing to provide psychiatric drugs to these patients. That's how bad it comes down to one thing: corruption, the looting of public funds, and the plundering of national resources.
Yeah. What do you think was the purpose of that experience? What message do you think government was actually trying to send out?
I was arrested just after I'd exposed the COVID-19 looting scandal, where high-ranking government officials, including people who are close to the president, were setting up shelf companies and then getting tenders, inflating prices. For instance, a mask worth 68 cents was being sold for $24 US. That's how bad it was. And I was incarcerated after exposing that. So the idea was to instill the fear of God in other journalists that if you expose corruption and if you involve the president and his family, this is what we'll do to you.
The case of Blessed Mhlanga was sent to the High Court, but was adjourned by the High Court Judge Justice Gibson Mandaza, who perhaps needed more time to find the dangerous parts of Mhlanga's interviews, decided to take a break before ruling on bail. Meanwhile, Mhlanga remains in custody, serving as a human reminder to all journalists that you can have freedom of speech, but freedom after speech, that's another story. To know more about this story, stay tuned. Welcome back to the 4 News channel. I'm your host, Boss Robert. Thank you to those who have subscribed, liked, shared, and commented on our videos. We appreciate you. But to those who have not yet subscribed to the channel, please show your brother some love by clicking subscribe button now, so that you don't miss any future giveaways that are to come. Back to the story. In theory, Zimbabwe's constitution guarantees freedom of expression and press freedom. But much like a gym membership in January, these rights exist in name only. The government insists that Zimbabwe is a democracy, yet journalists seem to be getting arrested at an alarming rate for doing their jobs. Reporters Without Borders once thought things might improve after Robert Mugabe's departure, but plot twist, press freedom has actually declined since 2023 election, with journalists facing more intimidation, censorship, and random arrests. The phrase, "you can exercise your freedom of speech, but freedom after speech is not guaranteed," has never felt more real. In Zimbabwe, you are free to speak your mind, but if the wrong people are listening, you might need to pack a prison bag. When a government decides that journalism is a national security threat, bad things start to happen. Arresting journalists leads to widespread self-censorship as reporters begin to avoid covering sensitive topics to avoid persecution. Investigative reporting fades and the news becomes as exciting as a government press release. The suppression of independent journalism and also means that the public is left at the mercy of state-controlled narratives, where everything is going great. Inflation is just a temporary setback and corruption is not an issue at all. With the press silence, corruption flourishes in the shadows. The public funds are misallocated, infrastructure projects are mysteriously over budget, and government contracts end up in the hands of close friends and political allies. When journalists like Mhlanga are imprisoned, officials no longer have to worry about being exposed, allowing them to act with complete impunity. At the heart of this issue is the fact that Zimbabwe's constitution guarantees freedom of expression, yet authorities continue to criminalize journalists under vague legal charges. The irony is clear. What is written in the law is worlds apart from what happens in practice. Mhlanga's case is a perfect example of how Zimbabwe's leadership only tolerates free speech when it is convenient for them. Blessed Mhlanga and his colleagues, such as Hopo Chingono, have dedicated their careers to exposing government failures and corruption. Unfortunately, in Zimbabwe, pointing out the truth is as risky as telling your grandmother her cooking isn't great. There will be consequences. By arresting Mhlanga, authorities have made it clear that journalists who investigate corruption and bad governance risk losing their freedom. This is not just about journalists. It's a warning to the entire media industry that questioning power comes with serious risk. If journalists are silenced, who will hold leaders accountable? When the press is under attack, corruption thrives. A free press is one of the strongest tools against corruption. But when government treat reporting as a criminal offense, the door is left wide open for financial mismanagement, bribery, and abuse of power. Leaders who once feared exposure now operate in a space where there are no checks and balances. Without independent journalism, corruption does not just grow, it becomes a system itself. The irony of Mhlanga's case is that while Zimbabwe's constitution protects journalists, the legal system is often used as a tool of repression. Legal experts argue that Mhlanga's arrest is unconstitutional, yet he remains behind bars. International media watchdogs, including Reporters Without Borders, Amnesty International, and the Committee to Protect Journalists, CPJ, have condemned his detention and called for his immediate release. However, the Zimbabwean government continues to justify the arrest, contradicting its supposed commitment to press freedom. The arrest of Blessed Mhlanga is yet another sign that Zimbabwe's government is allergic to criticism. While officials insist that press is free, The reality is clear. Reporters who challenge authority are at the risk of being arrested, harassed, or silenced. Mhlanga's case highlights the growing authoritarian tendencies in Zimbabwe, where leaders would rather imprison journalists than answer their questions. If his arrest is not condemned, it sets a dangerous precedent, one where journalists will have to choose between telling the truth and keeping their freedom. In the end, Zimbabwe must decide, does it want to be a democracy or just pretend to be one? Because if journalism is treated as a crime, then the real criminals are the ones trying to silence the truth. Let me know what you think about this story in the comment section below. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please show your brother some love and click that subscribe button now. Thank you for watching. See you on the next video. God bless you.